Hello and welcome to Movement. So what I really want to instill here is the concept of movement over exercise. I certainly thought of exercise activity levels as try and get X amount of minutes per day, per week, and then that kind of gave me free rein if I was hitting those targets to sit on the couch and do whatever. And don't get me wrong, I still do that from time to time, but what I've started to shift my mindset to now is the thinking of the activity level spectrum. And I'll put a video overlay right now. So we should have this spectrum or continuum of sedentary to active. Now, this is going to be determined by pretty much where your activity level has been over the last weeks to months. So if you've been, say, working an office job, if you've been run down, whatever it may be, more time on the couch, and you're going to be more on that sedentary side, that's where a lot of the body systems start to down-regulate, circulation slows down, energy production can slow down, and your body actually doesn't want to move as much. So I really experienced this firsthand. I had a decent level of activity before going to the mines, and I was working from home, doing really fulfilling creative stuff, and breaking that up with jogs, with a bit of a sprint on the bike around the block, of morning walks, and just this steady consistency throughout the day where there was time of sitting down, probably like an hour or so, but I'd get up and I'd move, and my body wanted to move. Then I go and work as a truck driver in the mines, 12-hour shifts, and basically you could only have a break in the middle of the day. As I was going from active to sedentary, so while I'm sitting there, I was literally bouncing off, like I was doing pull-ups on the side of the truck. My body wanted to move, and it was so uncomfortable not moving. Fast forward 3 months, my body had got used to not moving, and then I really didn't feel like moving. So when I stopped doing that and I wanted to improve my body composition, doing training was difficult, and I really felt like the needle had moved to sedentary, and then getting out of sedentary and back to active was as difficult, probably more difficult, as it was uncomfortable going towards sedentary. And what was really interesting, a little bit later on in the journey, I went from truck driving to yoga teacher training like 4 days later. And so going from all this time spent not moving to 3 up to 7 hours of yoga a day, my resistance was huge. I think for the first 6 days, like my mind was like, no, not now, this isn't the time, like just stop. But fortunately, because it had been many years in the making, I was committed. I was there. I'd gone to Thailand. Flew, rode 30 hours and got there. So I was like, no, I'm here, I'm doing it. And it took about 6 to 10 days to break through from sedentary to active. And then I remember the one Sunday we had off, I was like, you know what, I kind of feel like doing yoga today. And I was like, this is a good sign that my body's actually getting used to moving. So thinking about where we are on that continuum is really helpful, I find, because if we've been at sedentary, it doesn't make sense to then try and run half a marathon. People do that, and David Goggins and stuff like that probably advocate for that. Works for him. Not so sure about many others. Now, the thing that I think is really important about movement is not just that it's healthy, but what is it actually doing? Blood flow, circulation are probably some of the primary things that it does. And in addition, exercise is a hormetic stress where it gives you a little bit of stress that you can then adapt to. But we'll get into that later. So the blood flow and circulation is so key because brain health and general well-being is so contingent on that. So that's where I try and interweave little bits of movement, stretching, maybe even just getting up from the computer and doing like a little bit of yoga, some squats, like gentle, like nothing crazy, taking the stairs and just getting regular bits of movement in to kind of help move that needle up towards active and promoting blood flow. And I do feel that if I sit still for 3 to 4 hours, then I will feel my body starting to shut down. Now, this is a note that I'm actually going to add to sleep later, but it will be relevant here. There's been times where I've got home from work, 6 p.m. on the couch, chilling until 9, go to get into bed at 9:30, but my body had already shut down. So that time on the couch for 3 hours, my body actually thought I'd entered sleep, but my mind was still active. And that can actually take away from your sleep quality. So there's another little nuance of movement across sleep. So the other thing that I wanted to share is the concept of resistance zones. So this is something I've come up with, and it's come because I realize there's times where I've tried to go back to exercise and I've just been doing way beyond my capacity, the red zone here, and realized that it would have been so beneficial had I mapped out, okay, where am I at now? What's my comfort zone? What could I do consistently for the next month to 3 months and have no ill effect? It'd be absolutely easy. Now, for most of us, that's probably walking, or some degree. Let's say sitting. Everyone can sit that to some degree of comfort and it not tire us. So I'll just explain this resistance zone. So basically in the middle we've got comfort. On the end or the outside we've got the red zone, which is our maximal danger zone. Do not go. And it's pretty much natural to sometimes go up to the red zone, and even useful to work out where is our capacity, but we do not want to stay there. Once you reach what it is, you kind of want to come back, and the yellow zone is a good place. And you're going to naturally fluctuate between these, but if you can kind of hover in the green zone, that's really going to help for long-term sustainability. Because where this plays in important, here's an analogy. Let's say you're sprinting. If you keep up that sprint for 200 meters, say, at some point you're going to have to stop and you're going to fall back to, say, the comfort zone where you're just going to be like on the ground recovering, and then you can come back to maybe the green zone, a little bit of a walk, and pick up the pace eventually. So as opposed to perhaps going for a light jog and finding that you could do that consistently, or you do a little bit of a sprint and then you come back to the yellow. And so this is more relevant to exercise, but it can be useful to understand what is it that you've been doing for the last month. Let's say you've been going to the gym twice a week at a moderate intensity and you felt pretty good from that, but you could also feel little hints of fatigue. Well, that's probably pretty close to your yellow or orange zone. So if you start a new program and someone's like, right, we're doing 6 a week and we're going flat out every one, you're like, okay, that might actually be beyond my red zone and I'm not going to be able to sustain that for the 4, 6, 8 weeks intended. So hopefully if you're working with someone, they're going to help you dial that in. But ultimately, this can be a good concept to help you recognize what have you been doing and what's going to be realistic to do. So I'll leave this one here and I'll see you tomorrow.